Yo, what's going on? I'm the Anime Top Scholar, and today we're back with the second top 10 video in this little series. I know I said I'd only do 2 of these in my last video, but I kinda miscalculated, so I will be doing one more on my favorite retro OVAs as well. This time, however, we're gonna be taking a look at 10 of my favorite retro anime movies. So like I said last time, my definition of retro might not be the same as yours. For me, as long as the movie is 15 years or older, it qualifies. If you don't like that, you can tell me all about it in the comment section. Anyways, without any further ado, let's just get right into these 10 picks. In 10th, we've got the lovely Studio Ghibli movie from 1988 called My Neighbor Totoro. This family-friendly movie is set in 1950s Japan and follows the 2 kids, Satsuki and Mei Kusakabe, who together with their father, Tatsuo, moves out into the countryside to be closer to their hospitalized mother. This is a family-friendly movie that anyone can enjoy. Seeing 2 young girls trying to get used to rural life and exploring their new home is great fun. Also, the giant forest spirit that lives near their house, called Totoro, is just the cutest, so that really helps. This is a movie that I would definitely recommend you watch with your family if you have young kids. There's just a lot to love in this movie for people of all ages. Up next in 9th, we're moving away from the family-friendly stuff, and moving on to the 2000s movie from Production IG called Jinro. This alternate history movie is set in Japan during the 1950s. We follow Kazuki Fuse, who's a member of the elite Kerberos Panzer Corps, which is an anti-terror unit. We see as unrest is growing in Japan, and more people are coming out to protest the government, and those protests escalate to domestic terror. This is not a kids movie. There's a lot of graphic imagery, like suicide bombing. It is definitely not a movie for the faint of heart, but if you like alternate history type of movies, Jinro is one of the best in my opinion. The story is great, and the animation is some of the best I've seen in an anime movie. It also gets extra points for being probably the darkest version of Little Red Riding Hood as well. In 8th place, we've got the legendary movie from 1988 called Akira. This movie by TMS is set in Japan in 2019. It's another alternate history movie, where a young boy with psychic powers ends up causing an explosion that tears through Tokyo and ignites the fuse that leads to World War III back in 1988. We follow Tetsuo Shima and Shotaro Kanada, who are both part of a biker gang. Tetsuo ends up in an accident with an Esper and ends up gaining psychic powers, and now the government is after him to put him in quarantine to prevent another accident like the one in 1988. Honestly, I could keep talking about the plot of this movie, because there's quite a bit of moving parts to this, but I think you get the point. Like I said, this is a legendary movie. It proved to the rest of the world that anime was more than just cartoons. It showed that the medium was capable of more adult storytelling as well. It's a great movie and deserves all of the credit it's got in my opinion. It's visually stunning, really well animated, and tells a pretty gripping story for the most part. I'd say it falls apart a little at certain times in terms of the story, but not enough that it's a huge problem. And that is why it's here at number 8. In 7th, we have a movie that I don't think many people would expect to see here, and that is the 1991 Studio Ghibli movie Only Yesterday. This slice of life movie tells the story of Taeko Okajima, a 20-something-year-old woman who decides to take a break from her office job and takes a trip out to the countryside to visit her brother-in-law. During her time there, she learns about rural life and has a chance to reflect back on her own life. Honestly, this movie was a huge surprise for me. Most Ghibli movies that are not directed by Hayao Miyazaki often gets ignored, and this one is no different. Because of that, I really had no expectations going in, but I ended up really enjoying it. It gave me a weird sort of nostalgia and made me reflect on my own life and the choices I've made so far. Some good, some not so good. It was a really nice change of pace, and a movie I would highly recommend more people check out. It might not be directed by Miyazaki, but Isao Takahata is not exactly a bad director either. In 6th, we got the 1983 movie produced by Studio Madhouse called Barefoot Gann. This historical drama takes us back to Hiroshima, Japan during World War II, and it serves as a sort of eyewitness account of the horrors the people of Hiroshima experienced when they had the nuke dropped on them. This is a really powerful movie, and one that some people might have trouble stomaching. It's brutal and does not shy away from showing you even the worst scenes of the war. But because of this, I feel like this movie is a very important and good movie. It allows us to get a lot closer to the bombing without actually having been there to witness it. It's a very powerful movie, and one that most definitely more people should check out. And that is why it's there in 6th. Moving on, we've got this wacky movie straight from the mind of Masaki Yuasa called Mind Game in 5th. This movie was produced by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius and released in 2004. It tells the story of Nishi, an aspiring mangaka who reconnects with his high school girlfriend, Myon. Nishi is still in love with Myon, but is too much of a coward to say anything. He learns that Myon is actually engaged to another man, and Nishi agrees to meet this man. When they all meet up, they end up being confronted by some yakuza, and Nishi ends up getting killed, dying like he lived, a coward. But rather than moving on to the afterlife, he makes a dash for it, and runs back where he came from, only to revive and take his life by the horns, stop being a coward, and do exactly what he wants. This is one strange movie. Yuasa is known for his different art style and sometimes unorthodox storytelling, but this movie is strange, even for this man. That said, it is a super enjoyable movie. Its premise is fairly simple, and that it's all about living your best life and not having any regrets, but it turns the weirdness way up and makes it such an interesting watch. I loved this movie. It got quite a few laughs out of me, and also made me reflect on myself. I know it might look strange, but this is definitely a movie you should get to, especially if you like Yuasa's other stuff. In 4th, we find the work of a legendary anime director in Satoshi Kon's Millennium Actress. This 2002 movie was produced by Studio Madhouse and tells the story of retired actress Chiyoko Fujiwara's life, both as an actress and otherwise. But this is Satoshi Kon we're talking about, so it's not like that's all there is to it. The story is presented to us through an interview of Chiyoko, and as the interview keeps going, we're slowly pulled into the set of the movies that she worked on throughout her life. And we learn of her life as played out through her movies. It's honestly an incredibly fascinating movie, and the setting and execution of it all is something that only Kon could come up with. This movie is not just a story about this actor's life, it is also a love letter to cinema. If you're a fan of movies or a fan of Satoshi Kon and you haven't seen this movie yet, then do yourself a favor and get on that right now. As far as I'm concerned, Kon didn't make bad movies, and Millennium Actress is not just not a bad movie, but an incredible one. If you thought we'd be done with Satoshi Kon after just one movie, then you'd be wrong, because in 3rd is Tokyo Godfathers. This 2003 movie produced by Studio Madhouse tells the story of Gin, Miyuki, and Hana. 3 homeless people who on Christmas Eve ends up finding an abandoned baby and spends the entirety of the movie trying to find the parents. This is one of the very few Christmas movies we have in anime, but it is a great one. Unlike most Christmas movies, Tokyo Godfathers focuses more on the less fortunate. It tells us about the homeless situation in Japan, as well as the difficult times and many dysfunctional families who doesn't have the greatest of times during Christmas. This movie actually reminds me a lot of the story of The Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen, though that is set around New Year's rather than Christmas. That said, Tokyo Godfathers is yet another Satoshi Kon masterpiece. It is such a simple story, but the masterful execution of it all and substance added to the plot is enough to make this one of my favorite Kon movies, and arguably one of my favorite Christmas movies. In at number 2, we find a 1997 movie produced by Studio Gainax called End of Evangelion. Yes, this sequel/alternative ending to the series is my second favorite retro anime movie of all time. On my top 10 retro anime TV series list, I talked about how much I like Anno's approach to human psychology and layered characters, and that also holds true in this movie. What is different here though, is that the movie portrays what is happening while the ending to the TV series is spent inside of Shinji's head. Now, I don't hate the ending to the original series, but I vastly prefer this ending. It leaves me feeling more satisfied, but also leaves me wanting more. I can honestly say that this movie is not just my second favorite retro anime movie, but also my second favorite anime movie, period. The only reason why it's not number 1 on this list is because my number 1 favorite retro anime movie is also old enough to qualify. And last but not least, my number 1 favorite retro anime movie and my favorite anime movie of all time is the 1998 movie Perfect Blue. That's right, the 3rd Satoshi Kon movie on this list. I am a huge fan of all of his work, but none of his movies were quite as good as this one. In this movie we follow Mima Kirigoe, an idol who chooses to leave her idol group in order to focus on becoming an actress. This is a decision that not every one of her fans is very happy about, as one deranged fan begins stalking her and threatens her. Because of this, as well as the growing nerves and pressure she is under, Mima starts losing grip on reality as her role as an actress and her daily life starts mixing together. Like I said earlier, Kon is really good at mixing real and surreal elements in his movies. In my opinion, Perfect Blue is the best example of this, cause as the movie progresses, you start to question more and more if what we're seeing through the eyes of Mima is even real. Kon is also really good at using colors and the environment to physically show us how all of this stress is taking its toll on Mima. The color red is often present in the background, and as Mima's mental state weakens, the red backgrounds increase more and more. This is the sort of subtle storytelling that in my opinion really showcases how good of a director Kon actually was. But most importantly, it showcases how great of a movie this is. And if you haven't seen it already, then you should really do yourself a favor and get to it sooner rather than later. So those were my top 10 retro anime movies. Now remember, this is not some objective list of the greatest retro anime movies of all time. This is simply 10 of my favorite retro anime movies. Hopefully some of them surprised you. Also, let me know some of your favorite retro anime movies in the comments. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I am still not done with my exams, so there will be one more top 10 video, but this time, it will be about my 10 favorite retro anime OVAs. So look forward to that. Hopefully you've enjoyed these videos, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like. Also, subscribe for more anime related content from the anime top scholar himself. Peace!